What is up, everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Camera Junkie live stream. This is effectively episode 146. You heard correct. That is 146 consecutive episodes of the Camera Junkie live stream. And as always, I would like to thank you for taking the time and hanging out here with me. Oh, is this your first time? Well, let me introduce myself. My name's Lewis, also known as Mr. Camera Junkie, where I remind you to upgrade your skills before your gear. And if it is your first time, please be sure to introduce yourself into the chat so that you can get the nice Camera Junkie crew welcome. And as tradition goes around here, the first thing that we do is go directly there to see exactly who is the first of the crew to make it in to the stream. All right, so let's see who's here. Right off the bat, we have Parker Jennings. He's saying hello to Paul because he's also saying hello to the fam. Okay, the comments don't look too bad, but we can embiggen it a little bit. There we go. That looks pretty good for there. All right. Parker saying hello to everyone. Said looking forward to the stream. Yeah, me too, man. I even got notes on this one. So we're going to get into it today. Let me make sure I pull those up. There we go. So I have those over here. We'll be dealing with that in just a sec. All right. Adjusting things. All right. We got Sammy. He's saying hello to everyone. How you doing, Sammy? And Sly is also in the house saying hello to the fellow camera junkies. Hope everyone is having a great weekend. Likewise, Melanie's in the house. It's been a while we haven't seen her. How you been? Thanks for stopping by. And Mr. Moderator saying hello to everyone there. All right, cool. Well, today's subject at hand or topic is the Wonderlust, right? The Apple event that just happened this past Tuesday, and there's a lot of things that people might that might have just gone over their heads, and I kind of went over that whole event once again and kind of pulled out my favorite aspects or the things that I want to talk about that are exciting because of what is to come, and we'll get into that in just a bit. So first thing on the list was that they introduced the Apple Watch 9 and the Ultra version 2. Now, kind of the biggest difference is that they've really gone trying to be carbon neutral, as the entirety of the company. And the Apple Watch Series 9 is the first carbon neutral item that they've provided, meaning that the emissions or the carbon footprint of the device itself has already been off put by the materials used within the creation of the device and other things to mitigate the kind of footprint or like the gap in that would be caused because of the device. And this is something that Apple is trying to effectively be ahead of the curve, so to speak, on in this aspect, because they even had a whole like 10-minute like comedy skit during the Wonderlust to basically talk about how they've become carbon neutral and how they're pleasing Mother Nature. It wasn't the best, but it wasn't bad. It's a cool little twist. But the Apple Series 9 has a new SIP or system in a chip or something like that, which is their basic silicone structure for the watch that's allowing a lot of things to be commonplace. Like before in the Series 8 and in the Ultra previous versions, you had click gesture, which basically you'd be able to do this, and that was something that was available in accessibility for that same fact for people who might not have the ability to have two arms, and they're still wearing their Apple Watch. They're able to respond and still communicate and manipulate like a lot of its features with that. So they've taken it a step further with this SIP now, and now they have the ability to kind of make that a commonplace feature and make it more reliable, so that they have a better understanding of when you're actually clicking, comparative to when you're not. And if you're finding this, function or this method of clicking interesting, is because it's not the first time that we've seen it. We've actually, have seen this aspect already before, not only in the accessibility with the watch, but also that's the main feature with the Vision Pro, which I talked about previously in other live streams. So we have the new Apple Series 9 and the Ultra version 2. They have also like enhanced peak brightness, so they should be easier to be seen during the day and still hold the same type of battery life. So all in all, like, those look like they seem like substantial upgrades, especially the Series 9 compared to the Series 8. Not so much the Ultra versions, unless you want to go from, how they say, virgin titanium to like recycled titanium, which is what they're trying to use in everything now. Everything is like a recycled band, recycled everything, to try to once again keep that carbon footprint as minimal as possible. But another thing that they talked about is the new iPhone 15. Now, the standard iPhone 15, and then we have the Pro models like that come out every year. But the standard 15 got substantial upgrades, from 48 megapixel cameras that were only available in the Pro series, and also the A16 Bionic chip that was in the Pro series last year is now coming to the standard iPhone series. And when I say standard series, is because it's no longer just the iPhone, but also an iPhone Plus. So the iPhone 15 is going to come out with the standard iPhone and a Plus model, which is also a bigger screen, a 6.7 inch screen, which is going to carry a bigger battery, which is going to give it better battery life. So in a nutshell, I think that one is going to sell like gangbusters, because everyone's just going to want to pick the bigger screen without having the price tag of the Pro models associated with it. So that's where I see that one is really going to do well for them, especially compared to kind of what it's replacing, being the mini series, when they're always trying something bigger or smaller. In a nutshell, the bigger screen phones always end up selling more. So the iPhone 15 is also going to come with the dynamic island, which is the new, like, the notch, or the way that they use their speaker and camera setup within the phones. And that being first introduced in the Pro series last year, and was last year, right? So they come out so often. But in the model prior, in the iPhone 14, that now the dynamic island is in the standard versions of the 15 and the 15 Plus, that wouldn't be found prior to in the previous models. Another big thing that is changed in this iPhone and in the Pro series as well is that they all are abandoning the lightning cable for USB-C. Now, this is big, and a lot of people who are Samsung device owners be like, this is old news, so on and so forth. And a lot of people were wondering why it took Apple so long, and it's money, because they had the MRIF something like program, which is basically the acronym for made for iPhone, right? So is MFIP, right? And that tag that was put on every lightning device or accessory that was made from any company basically gave a kickback back to Apple for it being allowed to be used in the connector that they've created. And they've lost that bit of kind of profit when it comes to them switching to USB-C. But it's not of their own kind of accord. And for those of us in the know that kind of pay attention to this stuff, you would might have heard that the European Union basically was the one who kind of manhandled Apple to make the iPhone USB-C, because if they did not comply with the USB-C standards set upon by the European Union, then at that moment Apple would not be able to sell their new devices in that country, being the entirety of Europe. So they have to comply and made the iPhone USB-C, which makes it a lot better in a variety of different ways. But there's also a difference between the USB-C on the standard iPhone and the Pros. So that's also something that I wanted to touch on. The screens now go up to 2000 nits brightness, which is similar to the watches, which once again is better for outdoor use, like in direct sunlight. And if I'm correct, I believe that that's double than what they had last year, because I believe it was 1000 nits brightness in the iPhone 14. And I could be wrong, but I'm just gonna flow with it. Correct me if I am wrong in the chat. It has a new 48 megapixel camera that was only featured in the Pro models, and now that trickles down to the standard model. And instead of just having 48 megapixel files, they've also created a new way of, structuring the images that you're recording with the cameras. So whenever you were to take a picture, even though it's 48 megapixels of resolution, it's kind of getting downscaled to a 24 megapixel photo as the final result after it does all of its processing, so that it also takes up less file size and it's easier for the files to be shared. Even though it's being recorded in Hive and all that stuff, that, which is already a like compressing form, a form of compression. So let's reverse that. The Hive format is still going to be a Hive 24 megapixel. So once again, even smaller, to make it easier to, like manipulate and also transfer files and share, so on and so forth. Hey, Albert's in the house. He's in here, says Saturday Night Live with Lewis. Hello from Arizona. Thanks for stopping by. All right, let me get a sip here. I took a break there to give this an evaluation because I bought a variety pack of this Celsius kind of like drink to see if maybe I could slow down on my Monster addiction. And I haven't really found one of the flavors that I liked. I'm trying new things. They're all kind of like, how could I explain, like artificially flavored, right? Like these are no sugar, right? So I guess I could understand that, but it kind of tastes like that artificial, I guess kind of like Red Bull flavor, kind of chemically, so to speak. This combination is probably one of the better ones, the wild berry. It's got the less, but a couple of the other flavors are really artificial, even though it's non-sugar. There's a lot of flavors of those, so I bought a 12 variety pack just to see if there's one that I could find to kind of expand my horizons, but I'll continue. Okay, Sly says, because I'm a klutz, I have small hands, I tend to drop big phones. I'll stay away from the 13 mini as long as I can, or I'll stay with my 13 mini as long as I can. I was thinking about that as well, but then something else that happened during this, Wonderlust event really got me thinking, because personally, I'm still on the iPhone 11 or the 11 Pro. And I have an 11 Pro regular size and the Pro Max, right? Because that's what they're called. Yeah. Not the Pro Plus, the Pro Max. And I do like the size of the Pro. It fits better in my hand. But I always end up using the Pro Max because of the battery life. So if if the iPhone 15 battery life is equivalent to this Pro Max, I might go with the smaller size just because I kind of do prefer it, and I feel you on that. But I do feel that the regular Pro size is like, I guess, what you would consider your mini, because I find that that one is just like the perfect size for me. So Paul says, I can tell you what I think of the new phone next week. You know what? I forgot to ask which size and which one did you get? Did you get the 15, the Plus, or did you get the Pro, the regular, or the Max size? So let me know. Well, so continuing with that, right? We mentioned that it's got 2000 nits of brightness, so it's gonna be really good to be using outdoors. And then if you're taking photos and video, that's also gonna be better to compose your shots when you can see the images better on the screen, especially that none of these phones have viewfinders. So we have the A16 Bionic, the A16 Bionic chip, which is now in the regular 15s, are once again like a hand me down, a trickle down from the Pro series of yesteryear. So the previous year's Pro series is basically what you can get in the iPhone 15 regular. So for the price and the money, if you're not really into the whole three camera thing for pros, like you could really do well with going with the standard iPhone 15, because you're gonna get like all the punch of an iPhone 14 Pro in it. You know, you're not gonna have the ultra wide and the macro on it, or do you? I would have to double check because I know that they switched it up. I don't know if they have the like macro and the ultra wide available for that series, but I digress. Regardless, it's gonna be a powerhouse of a setup. Just the iPhone 15 and the 15 Plus. If you're someone like me that's like gonna be upgrading from the iPhone 11, maybe even the iPhone 10, something of that sort, we're really gonna see a lot of bang for our buck. And yeah, and oh, and this is the new feature, because this is something that trickles down through both series or both sets of the phone, whether it's the Pro, Pro Max, all the new iPhone 15s are going to have focus and depth control. Now, let me repeat myself: focus and depth control post photo. Now, there was a series of cameras, I believe they were called the Litro cameras. I believe Tony and Chelsea Northrup made a video on this, and it basically was supposed to capture like all the focus, right, within all the range of everything in the shot. So it was supposed to capture like all of this information in 3D space, so that after the fact within the camera, you're able to select your focus point and have a natural bokeh effect on the surrounding environment. And that's something that Apple seems to and demonstrated that they have got on lock. So we've always known that these iPhones and basically all the smartphones now have like computational photography, where it's more computer based, and they're just getting all the information, color and light as straight data, and stacking layers of data on top of each other to get the best dynamic range, imagery, so on and so forth, which is kind of its like main negative as well, its main flaw, that when you try to use all of this computational aspect to create like a blurry background effect in portrait mode, which was made popular, I believe, going back to the iPhone 7 Plus, which is the first one to have that, right? Going all the way to back then to the 7 Plus, we've been trying to get the most realistic bokeh in all of these shots. Hey, what's up, Alec? Alec is in the house, sneaking in. I guess this is early morning for you because it's late night for us. So, Alec, for those of you who don't know, is in the future. So, he'll probably say hello back to me tomorrow or something like that. So, that's really cool. So, how you doing, bro? Nice to have you here. All right. So, getting back to it, this new focus and depth control is a new feature that Apple had just announced, talking about that you can take and select your focus point and get natural, fall off and blur after the fact, meaning you can just take a photo of a situation and then decide completely after, when you're in the photo app, to say, I want to make this into a portrait. Now that you said that you want to make it into a portrait, it gives you a whole list of new features within the editing phase of it to actually allow you to pick your focus point. So you can say the person in the background was the one that I wanted to be in focus. And then it will, the same way that you can select someone while you're going to take a photo, and you know that the camera will then highlight their face and focus on it so that you can snap the picture. You can do that completely after the fact. You can just select that person in the background and then change it, and then everything else gets that natural bokeh fall off. But then if you're saying, you know what, I want to take the same photo and make a portrait of the person in front, you then have the option to do that, and the person in the background is now lost to blurriness, so to speak, which is next level, because I believe Lytro was the name of that camera company that was trying to create something like this. And it makes me think that the reason why we never heard anything of that company is because that type of technology could have been gobbled up by a company like Apple. Going back to, like, when I was talking about the Vision Pro and that, court side, vision that I used to use on my Oculus to watch basketball games, which was, yeah, I forgot the name of it, but that whole system was bought out by Apple in 2020, and that's why we never saw it after that fact. And once we never saw it, we're just sitting here wondering whatever happened to that tech. And now that that's going to be one of the main features, is going to be one of the main features. I just got your text, Paul, so thank you. Um, that is going to be one of those main features in the Vision Pro, right? So knowing that that's something that's coming, I'm thinking that this Lytro camera could have fallen victim to the same type of, like, consumption by Apple itself. But if that is exactly what we're looking at, then this is going to be revolutionary, especially being able to create something completely, like, dedicated as a portrait photo, and that have it look, like that's exactly what you meant by just taking it from a snapshot, from just grabbing the phone and automatically using the standard camera to snap that picture. And that everything that I just mentioned is even going to be available on the standard iPhone 15 and 15 Plus. So that's just like next level. Another new feature of the iPhone is voice isolation, right? We have voice isolation for a lot of things, and that's something that we strive for when we're creating content. And it was shown that it was something that was easily accessible during a phone call. My question and hopes for this is that it will also be available in video. Now, one of the things that I use in my setup here to get the best quality microphone sound is Crisp. And I've mentioned it before, but I'm going to go to it right now, and I'm going to deactivate Crisp so that you could hear the background noise of my air conditioning, right? So let me do this real quick. Yeah, I just muted the music, right? And by muting the music, I'm now going to turn off Crisp. And now you can hear all the background noise that I'm eliminating with Crisp. And that's basically voice isolation in a nutshell. And now, if you're on a phone call on an iPhone and it sounds something similar to this, or maybe in a crowded environment, you have the ability to turn on voice isolation, like I can turn on Crisp, and remove all of that completely. So now that is a feature that I hope will be available in your video recording, because if you're able to record voice isolation while you're creating a vlog right on your phone, then that's going to be next level for content creators all over. And that's kind of like my hopes. So fingers crossed on that aspect, because that would just be a no-brainer for so many people to just go out and buy an iPhone 15. Now, besides voice isolation, is now where we're going to discuss some of the differences between the standard and the Pro series. And the Pro series 15 is main key thing is that it's titanium, baby. What is it? There was a song, right? I am titanium, right? So that's the new iPhone. The new iPhone 15 and 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max are made out of titanium bezels. So having those titanium bezels is going to make it the lightest iPhone and still keep a lot of its rigidity that you would get from the stainless steel, but the titanium being just as strong or stronger will be able to maybe be made thinner and still have that same rigidity. Because of it, it's also going to have the thinnest bezels, so the kind of metal is going to get even closer to the screen, giving you closer to edge display throughout the entirety of these devices. It's also going to be the first to bring on the new 3 nanometer die technology. Now, this is where I am getting nerdy and really excited, because I've mentioned this before about the nanometer size of silicone that's being made for the processors, and going from 5 to 3 nanometer is a substantial jump, especially when it's going to come to the speeds and the low cost of electricity necessary to create those speeds in this new silicon, because they're talking about over 19 billion, and that's with the B, billion transistors. Now, most people can't even grasp 1 billion. Okay, it's a word that gets thrown around a lot, but most people cannot grasp the amount of 1 billion. The jump from millions to billions is astronomical, right? And now when you're going from 19 billion transistors within your iPhone, that is all designed to create this entire, it's just really hard to grasp, because there is such a huge discrepancy in the amount of tech that we're getting in these devices. I believe when this event was going down, I sent a message to Paul, and I was just telling him, like, this is a really remarkable time that we're living in, because basically all this tech is in your pocket. It's in a little brick like this, but I digress. So within those 19 billion transistors in this new, which I believe they're calling it the A17, right? The new A17 chip. I'm not sure if they called it Bionic. I missed it on that one. I can't tell you if they called it the A17 Bionic, but the A17 chip with 19 million transistors also is going to have dedicated cores, dedicated engines for ProRes, Pro Display, AV1 video, USB-C that's going to be within the Pro series is also going to have a dedicated USB controller. Now, this is something that we're always talking about when we're talking or mentioning the USB-C hubs and USB-C, docks that we connect to our computers, and we're always mentioning to make sure that they're powered hubs or docks so that they have powered controllers, so that the controllers can basically navigate all of the different devices and can route multiple cameras, multiple connections, microphones, so on and so forth. This is a dedicated USB-C controller built into the silicon so that it can reach, up to 10 gigabyte or 10 gigabit per second speeds, making it like USB-C 3 speeds, effectively making it 20 times faster than the USB-C and USB Lightning connections of its predecessor. So it's basically getting 20 times faster connections through that USB-C cable because now the silicone has a dedicated controller for it. On top of that, we also have something that I mentioned a long time ago, which was a rumor, and it came completely to fruition, which is ray tracing. Now, I mentioned it before, ray tracing is all about how to manipulate light and how light blooms, within, your vision, and trying to create the most realistic environments available. So going from iPhone 14 Pro to iPhone 15 Pro with this new ray tracing core basically also dedicated to it, is it's gonna take a, in this case, in this example, a video game that they demonstrated that would run at roughly 8 seconds or 8 frames per second, meaning extremely choppy, laggy, to a fluent 30 frames per second. And I know if maybe not 60, but could reach higher frames per second with that setup, because that's what ray tracing is basically designed for. And the reason why I had mentioned it prior is because ray tracing is the next step in video gaming when it comes to the PC world. And PCs, the latest video card or video graphics cards that are available are the ones that are available to do ray tracing the best, giving you the best overall experience, because it literally takes a lot of the weight of the environments that you're displaying through, your monitors and being pumped out by your computer, and taking that weight completely off, because it's just like, Apple silicone, that they've been dedicating cores to a particular task, like the high compression, so that you can get these M4V files that the iPhone pumps out, and you're getting high quality 4K video, but in a much smaller file size. So all of this has to do basically in play. And when I had mentioned it, I said, if Apple really is looking into ray tracing, this could be the next level of gaming. And that's exactly what Wonderlust was highlighting on, that these phones are going to be built and designed to take advantage of online or mobile gaming, which is so huge. It's basically bigger than gaming, off of PC ever would be, because we're talking about the entirety of countries like India that do not have the ability to have an entire PC setup, but do have an Android phone. And now that's included in the world of, basically phone or mobile gaming. And now the ones that are going to have the ability to walk around with iPhones, and when it trickles down to those hands, they're going to be in a much better world from, computing, than they ever would with an entire PC setup. So it is mind boggling what's being developed in this new 3 nanometer technology, all designed for the iPhone 15. So iPhone gaming is here. It's not coming. It is like officially here with these new Pro Series devices, which gets me all hyped up because even though they didn't mention it, I already understand that that's the next level of M-powered Mac computers. Because if they're dabbling in the ray tracing and now they got that core down and it is working flawlessly to the point that they're putting it in their pro devices, then the next version of Mac Silicon for computers, the M3 models, are going to be based off this new 3 nanometer technology, and that's going to increase the power production speed and also keep the heat of these devices extremely low. So once again, basically the fans are not even gonna break a sweat. They're not gonna come on it necessarily and feel like a jet is going off because you're, using your computer for gaming. And these next versions of silicone computers, you're gonna see a Mac Mini with the M3 processor outdo a regular, like, full on power PC with all the Intel, graphics, or Intel graphics, no, the Intel processors with all the Nvidia graphics cards, the 4090s of the world. All that's gonna just be like done because a small little M3 box like this with a core dedicated for ray tracing is gonna run circles around its competition, and that's right now. So that's where I'm really like giddy and excited, because I'm gonna be perfectly in line, kind of like I am for the iPhone, to replace my studio for the M3 Studio and get all of these amazing benefits when that silicone hits the market. So I'm super excited because ray tracing in the Apple universe is bonkers. That is just bonkers to me. I'm super super excited, and the portal that they created, that they also talked about during their worldwide developers conference, which is basically a translator where you can take PC games, throw it into this translator, and have them run basically natively on the Apple, on the Apple infrastructure, on the Apple Silicon machines. So having that, knowing that that already exists, and having that being the precursor, and now knowing that the new metal infrastructures and ray tracing is going to be built in to this silicone, and have that full size but not from a phone but for a computer, is just like the future of Apple is so bright, so bright, especially with these new developments. Now, the differences in the phones themselves that have nothing to do with the computers is that we have the new series of Pro cameras. Now, they marketed it to us as 7 different cameras, but it's basically still 3 physical cameras with 7 crop modes, so to speak, to play with. So the 48 megapixel camera now has the ability to crop into like a 24, a 28, and a 35 millimeter focal length in their native zoom functionality. And when you have that there, I haven't tested it obviously, but I want to see exactly how it works out, because what I'm understanding is that we're going to get a 24 megapixel file at the end, no matter which file type you select. And that's where it could be very, very different. So, how could I explain this? Imagine that the 48 megapixel sensor is always taking a 48 megapixel shot, and that's what it's going to do. But then it's going to take that and shrink it down to a file size and a resolution of your liking. Now, if you're using that same sensor and you crop it in all the way to 35 megapixels, What you would lose within the crop, I believe, would still leave you with a 24 megapixel image, right? And that's why they're emphasizing it that way, that it's different lenses. So, natively, if you were to just crop in to the sensor and utilize it at 35 millimeters, you will get the maximum resolution of 24 megapixels, which is why they're marketing it this way. And I could be wrong, but this is what I believe is being done through the computational photography. I forget what they call their algorithm for it. So why is that different? Well, because, for example, let's talk about this camera here. This is my secondary shot. This is, as we can see here, is the Sony Alpha A7R2 and the lens information, but is the A7R2. Now, this is a 42.2 megapixel sensor. So in full frame in its entirety, it does 42 megapixels. But whenever I attach an APS-C lens onto it, when I attach that lens to it, what we get is an 18 megapixel file, and that is the max resolution that you'd be able to get because of the actual cropping in of the photo sites on the sensor itself. You're not using all 42, and cropping into it, right, will resolve into a 18 megapixel file, right? And I think that that's exactly what's happening with the iPhone. It's taking a 48 megapixel, and then when you add that type of lens, which will give it that 35 millimeter focal length, then the max resolution that you'd be able to get is 24 megapixels, which is why they said that's our number, right? Because you'll be able to crop in to the third time and get that 35 millimeter. And when you look at the photo, you won't be able to distinguish it between all the others because the resolution is going to be as good as 24 megapixels, which is automatically or effectively double to what they were providing just a couple of years ago on the iPhone 13. Because the iPhone 14, actually, the iPhone 14 was still a 12 megapixel. It was the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max that had the 48 megapixels, as that trickle down effect keeps applying. So having the 48 megapixels cropped into 35, now when you zoom out even more, right, you're getting more actual photo sites, right? Now that you back up to 28 and you have even more than 24, and it comes to the first stage of downscaling, so to speak. So now let's say you have a max resolution of 28 megapixels, and now you're going to downsize that to 24 and res out only a 24 megapixel image. That way it matches and is congruent not only in quality but in file size, so that they're all the same standardization, making it easy to share, easy to transfer, easy to do a lot of things. And then we take it one step back, right, and we go to the 24 megapixels or 24 millimeter focal length. That's going to use the entirety of the 48 megapixels, and when it uses all of them, it's going to once again shrink that down, and it's going to scale it down to a 24 megapixel size, so that the final result is going to stay congruent once again in quality and file size. Which is why I think they have the audacity to say we have 7 different cameras when they're just utilizing crop modes, but understanding that their crop modes are correct and saying even if we crop in 3 times, we're still getting a full on legit 24 megapixel file, which is what you would have found on basically all of Sony's cameras, full frame 24 megapixel sensors up to the iPhone, to the A7 IV that they changed to the 33 megapixel, and the cameras that are trickling down from there. Now, we also have Robert in the house saying the Sony A6100 is still doing a great job. New gear is not always required. Thank you. Yeah, and exactly. This is still an amazing setup. I got a new camera. Well, just to mention it, I got the A6600. Very happy with this guy, but he's a bit chungus, right? Meaning he's a heavy boy, you know, and weight definitely has to do with it, especially with the APS-C cameras. Gretchen is also sneaking in, saying hello, long time. Yeah, very funny. Paul saying what's up to Gretchen. All right, so going back to it, that's why I feel that, you know, Apple has the, like I said, the audacity to say that we have 7 different cameras in our phone. And I have to put a asterisk onto that because the 7 different cameras, well, I guess it will still apply to the standard Pro, but they mostly talked about the Pro Plus because one of the 3 cameras, the telephoto zoom, changed from 77 millimeters, which it was in the previous model, to now 120 millimeter focal length, and that's pretty zoomed in. So if you were to really have a 120 millimeter f2.8 lens, like that would be amazing for portraits, right? Like that type of lens and a camera is going to get you amazing results. So I'm really excited to see how those images are going to look because they're not using a variety of different like lenses or using the telescopic type of technology that was previously seen on Samsung devices, where they took a, you know, array of lenses, right? So let me give you an example. This is a lens. It's very small, but it is, right? So within the lens, you have the elements, you have the lens elements, and they all stack on top of each other to give you the accurate focus. And that's how they get the resolution from the front to your sensor. That's how it works. So when you have a telephoto lens, telephoto lenses usually uh, end up looking like this. This big bad boy, because of the simple fact that you need a lot of glass to get that focal length range of 120 millimeters. And this one is a 75 to 260. But effectively, a 120 millimeter lens could look something like this. And how would you be able to get this equivalent amount of glass within a cell phone? Well, Samsung created a really cool technology. So imagine a periscope, right? Like on a submarine. Imagine that here, right at the end of the lens, you had a 90-degree periscope and another one matching at the other end. So instead of having something this long hanging off the end of your phone, what Samsung did is that they embedded all of the glass for the long focal length within the body itself, and then put one of those, you know, like um one of those, like a mirror on both sides, so that you can get that. I forgot the word, I just said it too and I'm running a blank. A periscope, right? So that you can get a periscope effect like you would get off of a submarine, and have all the glass to be able to get a zoom lens and still keep the profile very small. So effectively, like if you were to see like that Android phone, the lens might be here, but the sensor for the camera was way down beneath because all the glass was sitting sideways in the difference. Apple decided to not go with that route, and they created a tetra prism. So it's a 4 times prism design that basically takes the light and steps it down, which is really interesting because of one thing. The difference between that and having an array of different lenses, right, stacked on top of each other, is that every time light passes and, you know, goes through one of these different lenses within the array, it loses like the punch of the light, right? It loses potency of the light, which is at the end of the day what we're trying to get the most out of our cameras is capturing light, and that's where the aperture goes. So they're say let's get the words out. All right. So they're stating that this is a 120 millimeter telephoto zoom with an f2.8 aperture, and this tetraprism design is what allows it to do. Now, I'm already familiar with prism designs because I come from the world of DSLRs. And oh, you can't see it right now, but right up there, right where my finger's pointing, I actually have a prism from a DSLR that I dismantled because I was trying to fix. Long story. That's basically the only part that I kept, because it just shows me how the technology worked, and it's a really interesting piece. So I just have it there, kind of like as a trinket on your desk. And thinking that they're using a typical or a similar design to that type of prism, meaning that there is no loss of punch on the light. There's no loss of light. Oh, excuse me, Celsius, you're killing me. But there's no loss of I I'm saying these words, and then like after I say them, I can't remember them because it's like they're gone forever. But it loses its punch. It loses the value, the amount of light that's actually being passed through the lenses, right? It loses its potency. That's the word. Okay. But using the tetraprism design, they shouldn't lose any of that potency, transmitting that design that image all the way to its sensor. Now, the sensor is also something very interesting because the Pro Plus is going to have the first 3-axis image stabilization sensor. So it's going to have a X, Y, and Z axis, meaning the sensor is going to shift up, down, left, right for stabilization, but also in and out to create an exact focus, right? To assist in the focus to make sure that it's getting the image correctly. And that is, to me, seems to be a really good decision, especially for stabilization at 120 millimeters, because it's not easy. 120 millimeters is not easy to get a nice stable shot. It's a lot harder for video than it is for photography because you're just getting one shot in photography, right? And you can get one sharp image and you're good to go. You can make it a little bit bigger so that you can crop it, just in case you didn't get everything exactly, as straight as you wanted, so that you could adjust that in post production, meaning that you're going to be using a lot of this for video, and having this telephoto 120 to get the best photos and video, it's going to need a really good form of stabilization. So this is going to be obviously a combination of active stabilization, like I just mentioned, the 3-axis, but also digital stabilization to go hand in hand with it, which has really got me excited. Now, the biggest thing for me, I think, is that as of a couple of iterations of iPhone, we've already been able to record in ProRes, log data, RAW, basically. And the one negative to all these devices that have been able to do so is that they've all been stuck on USB 3.0 speed, so to speak, and using that much slower connection off of lightning and things like that. So whenever you try to transfer data, it was always extremely slow. With this dedicated core for or controller for the USB-C, you're getting 10 gigabits per second, but it's also going to allow external recording of video to an external hard drive. Now, listen to what I'm telling you, meaning you can take an external hard drive like a Samsung T7 SSD hard drive, connect it USB to USB, and have all the functionality of your iPhone, but the file recorded directly to the hard drive, meaning that totally bypasses the need of having to transfer any data at any type of speed. Just totally negates it because you have the files directly onto the hard drive, and now that they're on the hard drive, you're automatically freeing up the drive space or the capacity space in your actual iPhone. What? Okay, what does that mean? That means that you can buy the entry level pro iPhone at 128 gig, and then buy a 1 terabyte external SSD connected to the iPhone and have a 1 terabyte external SSD like video camera setup. Oh, you bought a 2 terabyte, a 4 terabyte SSD? Good to go. Doesn't matter. Connect it to your iPhone, and now you have the ability to record basically indefinitely onto that drive. Like, your battery will die way before you run out of room. And as soon as you're done recording, you disconnect and you plug that into your computer, and you're right into Final Cut Pro, editing that file that you just recorded onto the external hard drive. Now that is gangbusters, next level shite right there, because the external drive also allows your iPhone to record natively or externally, but allows its full functionality, meaning you can record in 4K 60 frames per second to an external device, allowing you to get 4K slow motion video from your iPhone externally. Now, this iPhone Pro series also is the first one to be awarded like the seal of ACES, which is the Academy Color Encoding System. It's kind of like the black magic raw, so to speak, of the film industry. And we're talking about the Academy Awards. The Academy, right, is what ACES is all about, and this is the first phone to use that color encoding system natively into that. So now your color correction aspect from all of this raw or ProRes raw footage is good to go, because you'll be able to utilize ACES. And the mic drop moment for me, because all of these things are fine and dandy, they are all amazing, right? And me being on an iPhone 11, I'm like, I'm well overdue for an upgrade, and maybe one of these two phones, right? Let's see which one I pull the trigger on. But it was also confirmed, and this is the mic drop, this is the moment, right? Take the new iPhone 15, put it on its side, and not utilizing the telephoto camera, but the wide angle camera, being the 12 megapixel camera and the 24 megapixel standard camera. So the wide and the standard will record video simultaneously and be able to create and capture spatial video. The same spatial video designed for the Vision Pro. So yes, just like I had mentioned when I first talked about me wanting and knowing that I was going to pull the trigger on the Vision Pro headset, one of the biggest things that people were talking about is like, okay, you can record spatial videos and they are amazing. They feel like you're there, like it's lifelike, but I don't want to be wearing this device to record that. I don't want to be at my son's birthday party and wearing this like helmet thing so that I can record it in this 3D spatial video format, I would much rather not wear that system and have the ability to enjoy it. And what I said was, well, they're going to do something. I said they're going to most likely create a camera that's a standalone device, kind of just like a camcorder, that you'll be able to record this spatial type video so that then you can play it back on the headset and not have to wear it. I said ideally it would be the iPhone. I said, but I don't know if they'd be able to do it with, such little cameras, because of the fact that this, Vision Pro has 13 different cameras so that it can do everything that it does. Well, apparently all of those 13 different cameras has a lot to do with, the functionality of you being able to place your hands wherever you want and still be able to click and, utilize it in the way that you want. So the way that I'm thinking is that this now really confirms that you're going to be able to record all of these videos in the spatial form, and it's going to be kind of like what's the other thing, the live video, right? So for those of us who actually own iPhones, you'd be familiar with the live video, meaning you can take a photo, or live photos, not live video, because yeah, that makes no sense. Let's reverse that and correct myself. Live photos, where it's you take a photo and you're able to press and hold the photo itself, and it gives you about a 3-second video clip of what was happening at that time. Another thing that does that most people don't utilize is that it actually allows you to select what portion of the photo you actually want the photo to be. So you can actually go into it, and if you happen to capture a photo of somebody utilizing the live photos feature, and you happen to catch them while they were blinking, right, and the photo is like them looking like that, you could actually go into it and adjust what portion of the live video, and if you actually get a better version of them where they're not looking half drunk, then you can utilize that and say set that as the photo, and then that becomes the photo that you save within your archive. Not a lot of people know about that, but that same feature is kind of what I wanted to touch on when I was talking about the focus and depth control remapping, that you're able to do all that in post production. So I guess the same way that you have the ability to select what photo is the actual end result with live photos, is kind of how this, or how I'm speculating this focus and depth control after the fact is going to give you the ability to control what is and what is not in focus. Very interesting, but super excited to know that now I'll be able to capture videos from my phone that then I'll be able to utilize directly into my Vision Pro and relive the experience as if I were there. This is going to be next level, and I'm really excited for it, just to play around with it as a techie, but also I'm really excited to see how I'm going to have the ability to edit spatial video, right? I need to figure that out, because transitions obviously are not going to be the same. Like, I'm just wondering, like, we have things that is commonplace in editing, like cross dissolve. How would a cross dissolve work in spatial video, right? Because if you feel like you're in a room, then like, is the cross dissolve gonna come like as a blackening out from behind you to the front, and then the image changes from one room to the next? Or do you decide that maybe I want to go from the back, or a wipe from the side and to the left, and how that effect is gonna fade in and out within a 3D environment? I can't wait. Like, that's the stuff that I just like get super giddy and like hyper nerdy about, because I can't wait to see how and what we're going to be able to do to edit spatial video and then share that as a video, because you'll be able to see the video on your phone natively but get all the juice, out of the file when you're using it on the Vision Pro. So if you're able to do so, that means you'll be able to edit a video using spatial videos that will still be playable on an iPhone natively. So hypothetically, we might be able to upload this video to YouTube where people will see it natively, but anyone that has the Vision Pro will be able to get all the juice out of the file and be able to experience it in a depth perception type of reality comparative to watching it on a flat screen. It's The complexities are so intriguing to me that I'm just super hyped for all of this. And also knowing that not everyone that has the Vision Pro is going to be the only one to be able to create content for the Vision Pro is also really exciting, because there's going to be people all around the world with iPhones that are not going to have available headsets, because the Vision Pro is, for us lucky enough to be in the North American, like area, and it's limited to the North American market. So I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that I have that in day one and really start messing around with these devices so that I can see, exactly what we can and cannot do, but also knowing that there's going to be people all around the world being able to record this spatial video and one way or another share it so that the people with the headsets could really experience that. It's going to be the next level of, VR and VR type headsets. So that's what I got for the Vision Pro. We're already 10 minutes over. Well, not for the Vision Pro, but for my thoughts on the Wonderlust are the things that really got me hyped up. In all sincerity, if you're just looking to upgrade your phone, going to any of the iPhone 15 with the USB-C is going to be like almost a no-brainer. The fact that the iPhone 15 and 15 Plus are using the A16 Bionics is like, why spend the extra money on an iPhone 14 when you can get all the punch for less of a price in the iPhone 15 and get a lot, including the 2000 nit brightness, so that it looks even better outdoors. It's kind of like a no-brainer for me. Definitely I'm going to be going Pro. I'm not sure if I'm going to go Pro or Pro Max. I usually tend to go for the Pro Max, but if the Pro can hold the battery life of my 11 Pro Max, then I might pull the trigger on that one, because I kind of like the size a bit better. 48 megapixel cameras. iPhone 15 goes titanium, thinner bezels, even lighter. New 3 nanometer transistor technology, so that, or microprocessor technology, really getting me excited for M3 silicon coming to all of the Apple devices. Ray tracing, gaming on iPhone, next level. External hard drive recording, 4K 60, next level. ASUS certified and spatial videos on the iPhone really got me hyped up more than anything, and I cannot wait. I absolutely cannot wait for all of this to come out. I'm definitely going to be pulling the trigger on one of these new phones to go along with my Vision Pro when I get my hands on it. And now, before I go back to the chat and before I forget, I'm going to go to this week's Cities God, channels that I think you should go and watch. Yep, that's what Cities God stands for. And this week's Cities God is none other than Anthony Lipani. Now, if you haven't heard of Anthony before, this week's channels that I think you should go and watch. He's a very funny content creator, Sony shooter, and all around, really informative and jovial. If you know my picks here, he's gonna make you laugh. It's gonna be entertaining, and he's also gonna be informative and educational. So he does shoot Sony, but as you can see, he has got a wide range of videos that go from microphones, because he's actually big on microphones. And one that I saw today that I seen before, but I just saw the thumbnail and I was like, you know what, this is one that I really want to watch again. Especially, you'll know why right now. Let me see if I can find it, because it's there. We go, right here. This one right here, the Rode Wireless 3 Go wish list. And for those of you who know, the Rode Wireless Go 3 never came out. We got the Rode Wireless Go Pros, and that whole new setup with 32-bit wireless float, like longer record times, that whole setup, with the kit, the extra case, the chargeable case, the connectors, the extra lavalier mics. I want to see exactly what was on his wish list and compared it to what Rode actually produced, because that's gonna be like fun for me to see how many things did Rode pay attention to in this video to actually apply to their new setup. But if you haven't seen him before, that's this week's Cities Gaw. Anthony Lipani, channels that I think you should go and watch. Bam. And that's how we do what we do. All right. So now let's go back here. We hit that. And we go back to the chat. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to hit the like button. It goes a long way. I've been talking so much. My lips are dry and they're like peeling as I'm talking. Horrible. All right. All right. Where did we leave off here? I saw a question. Okay, Law is in the house. What's up, Law? How you doing? Saying hey all and happy Saturday. Slide's got a question. So does that mean you might be able to live stream with Ecamm on the new iPhone? No. We'll take a drink for that one, because all the Ecammers will say that. Unfortunately, Ecamm runs on Apple Silicon computers, and the way that you design programs, or better in this case, not programs, but apps for the phone, do not work the same way. And Ken and Glenn, the writers and programmers of Ecamm, do not dabble in, that space whatsoever. So one thing you can do with your iPhone, which is why I said that this iPhone 15 is going to be like next level, if the feature, the voice isolation feature, when I was talking about the crisp, right? If voice isolation is available in video, then I'm going to tell you that's going to be a game changer for that fact, because if you're going to live stream to YouTube, then you have the ability to do that directly from your phone as is. The bad part is that you don't really have control as a content creator to block out all the sound except your voice. Meaning, if you go live on your phone, then you're more subject to maybe getting a copyright strike or a copyright claim, because somebody was playing music in the background while you were out and about in the real world. To get the most out of your content, so to speak, and avoid that as a content creator, then you're going to try to control your environment, which is why I also mentioned that if you're going to do like an outdoor event and you're using something like Ecamm, to use crisp so that you don't run through that risk. And if you have voice isolation for music and every other noise built directly into the iPhone, and you can have that also on a live stream, then there's really no need for Ecamm for you to at least go live on YouTube. Yeah, because it would only make it harder, trying to put overlays, transitions, and different things like that. And it's not like you're going to be connecting an outside camera. That would probably be the only thing that I would think. And that could be a possibility, but then at the same time, you wouldn't need Ecamm to do it, and I love Ecamm. It's just, I really see it hard to be done. The closest thing that I will ever see And this is just me, and please don't take this out of context, like, and this is just me thinking as a tech, right? The closest thing that I think we will ever see to anything like that is basically the same way that the Stream Deck has an online app. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm gonna pull this up right here. This is my Stream Deck. This shows me the different scenes. So if I want to switch to this scene, I just press that button. And then if I want to go to my, wide scene over here, I press that button. If I want to go over to my overhead, and check this out, this is a new camera that I put up here. As you can see, it's much wider, but it's definitely not as sharp. This is the Insta360 X3, but the thing about it is that it gives a 1080 image, but the 1080 image is for like the entirety of like my room. And then to get this type of shot, I'm zoomed in all the way with Ecamm, which is definitely decreasing or downgrading the imagery. So that's kind of like what I was saying about the cropping in for the phones themselves, but not bad, because I have my ZV-1F over here. This is usually my overhead camera, and I wanted to test it out. But as you can see, you can get the image going, right? And it's functional, but definitely loss of quality, especially when you even compare it to an iPhone XR, right? Going from this to that. Huge difference. So, but the reason why I was talking about it, so I don't scroll off, is that this is the Stream Deck, and this allows me to control all that. And if you don't have something physical like this device on your desk, you have the ability to have a app that acts like all of these adjustable buttons on your iPhone, on your iPad, and connected to your computer. It acts the same way. So that is what I would imagine that will be the closest that we would see anything actually legitimately happening on iOS devices having anything to do with Ecamm. Meaning Ecamm will be on your computer running, but you might have an external control via an iPhone that you might be able to maybe switch scenes like I just did, like press a button and have that happen from an external Ecamm iPhone app. And that's just me really honestly pulling that out of my ass, and being completely upfront with you guys, because nothing like that is even remotely being talked about within the behind the scenes at Ecamm. So there you go. Hopefully that answers the question, Sly. Scott is in the house saying what's up to the crew. Ecamm won't be running on the phone. There you go. Paul always takes what I say and just goes shrinks it that big. Sly says, that's a shame, Paul. I guess I have to eventually get a laptop. Yeah, and that's the whole thing. Like we talked about it last week. My M1 MacBook Air, if you're just connecting one camera to it and not asking it to be 4K, right? And happy with the 720p that you're getting out of it, connected via USB-C directly to it, then that's going to be more than adequate. And we're always trying to excel. And me, I'm going to be the first one to tell you, I'm a camera junkie, right? As a photographer, videographer, I feel that my online presence needs to be up to par, especially when I'm talking about that I'm a junkie of cameras, right? I need to show that, even though I do it because I have so much fun, but it's also part of my branding. That's why I also mentioned it, that for my car videos, and even though I have not finished that edit, it just came out a lot longer because a lot more happened. But I digress, because I'm not going to start talking about that. Basically, I've taken all of my car channel videos and I've done them all on the ZV-1F because it's extremely convenient. And I mean extremely convenient, because this guy right here is an amazing camera, and I put them side by side and I'm like, yeah, the image is really good on the A6600. But I'm gonna be honest with you, and this is FYI, this just in, flashing information, the stabilization digital on the ZV-1F kicks the behind off of the in-body stabilization on the A6600. Now, maybe if I were to pair the steady shot of the A6600 with an OSS lens like my 24 to 70 f4, right, or get something like it, I am thinking about pulling the trigger if I do get a good enough deal on the 18 to 105 f4G lens with the power zoom that's designed for APS-C, right? That is a lens that I've always been wanting to get my hands on if the price is right. $700-800, not my cup of tea. But one recently hit the market at a very low price, and if I can get it just a smidge lower, and I'm waiting to the end of the month, you understand, I'm gonna sweat it out, because if the person can get the most that they can out of it, more power to them. But if it's still available in around a couple of weeks before I start leaving to creator camp, if they're willing to meet up with me, you understand, for a good enough price, I'm gonna pull the trigger. And I'm talking about the 18 to 105 power zoom f4 Sony lens for APS-C. So that one might be better because of the built-in OSS with the steady shot built inside. But just a steady shot and this rocking on 12 millimeter lens that's wide enough, it's doing its best, you know. And I put the videos into Final Cut Pro just to mess around, but the active digital stabilization within the ZV-1F, and then using this wide angle lens adapter in front of it so that it can get a wider view but it's still doing the digital stabilization, is much better stabilization than what I'm getting out of the 6600 right off the bat. Very interesting. But I also said that that was actually like a B-roll beast, right? Like that ZV-1F slow motion, the S&Q functionality with the built-in active stabilization works amazing. It works amazing, and the focus on it is very, very good. Very good, even in the slow motion, aspect. So using it for B-roll, for slow motion clips of just gathering information, once again, I emphasize the ZV-1F beast of a little camera. So Randy's in the house. What's up? He says M2 MacBook Air is on sale right now. I wouldn't doubt it. You understand? And the whole thing is that the M2s are also such a big advance from the M1, and now coming out with the foreseeable M3 coming in the future using this 3 nanometer technology. Just to get a little nerdy, right? Let's say that each nanometer is a mile of distance, right? In this microscopic electronic world. So every time you have a 5 nanometer transistor, you have 5 miles of distance between the top and the bottom of that transistor, because that's the nanometers in between the steps and levels. So to get to the top is 5, and to get to the bottom is another 5, so that's 10, right? And that's what we call 1 hertz, a 1 going up and 1 down, and that's 10 hypothetical nanomiles, right, in the transistor to do 1 hertz. And then you have 60 hertz per second, and this is just hypothetical because these processors run in the gigahertz, right? So 60 per second, right? 60 hertz per second. Then you'd be doing 10 times 60, which should be 600 miles that this transistor would be moving, right? Or electricity would be moving in this transistor every second. 600 miles every second. So now we take that same mathematic and say we're now on 3 nanometers, meaning we shaved off 2 of the nanometers from the top, meaning going from the bottom to 3, it's only 3 miles, and then coming back down is also 3 miles, meaning 6 miles will give you 1 hertz in that transistor, and it just goes bloop. So now going 60 hertz, right, is going to only be 6 times 60, not 10 times 60. And I haven't even done that math, so I'll just do it on my phone real quick. 6 times 60 is 360. So you're taking from 600, basically decreasing 250 miles of transistor or electrical distance that the M3 or 3 nanometer processor technology would have to travel to do the same 60 hertz that the 5 nanometers would take 600 miles to do. And I don't know if that makes sense to you guys. It kind of went nerdy, but that's how, on the microscopic level, just trying to put some basic numbers. And we're talking about 60 hertz per second when these are, these transistors are running into gigahertz, realm. You're talking about 3.4 gigahertz. That is thousands upon thousands of hertz per second that these things are moving, and they're traveling in these microscopic nano transistors within the infrastructure of the Apple silicon. So going down and shaving that much basically real estate in the transistor is going to basically give you those types of gains. So you're basically talking about, I would say, close to 30% gains moving from one type of technology to the next. And those gains will be seen in cutting off the time for all the processes that you're asking your phone and in the future your computer to do. So having all of that working in your benefit, I can't wait for 3 nanometer transistors in a wafer the size of the M2 Ultras, right, into a Mac Studio, gonna be crushing it, and it's not even gonna be breaking a sweat. Can't wait. And that's why, once again, go back to what I told Paul, man, we're living in amazing times, and what we're seeing with computation right now is kind of unfathomable. Okay, Paul says current delivery date for the new iPhones now is October 18th to the 20th. Oh, really? They're gonna take like a month. It says for new orders. That's very interesting. Because, yeah, that's October. That's over 30 days. So that's cool. That means I have time. Alec is saying, thanks, Lewis. I currently use the iPhone 6S. Wow. You know what? He mentioned it not too long ago, because he also said that he's not that big of a phone person, which makes sense, right? And still being on the 6S. Wow. I say wow only for one reason. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're not on the latest firmware. Like, I don't think that those phones are even getting new updates as far as the firmware goes. So, yeah, that's a little risque depending on what you keep on your phone. Like me, I don't keep any like hypersensitive data on my phone. So, worst case scenarios, like I really wouldn't be losing anything. And that's just the model that I live by, right? To each his own. Because one thing that I've always said to people, I was like, if you were to be read your Miranda rights, right, in a like negative situation, and they were to tell you everything you can say, text, tweet, save in a Snapchat, put in your notes app, save in your WhatsApp, anything that's on your phone can, will, and is currently being used against you actively, you would think twice about what's on your phone. And I joke about this. I'm like, Siri is one drop away from turning her back on you. You know what I'm saying? You be in court somewhere and be like, wait, Siri, I thought you were my friend. You'd be like, you remember when you dropped me? hmm This is what he said. So I'll tell you the truth. Like, I find that super interesting. I don't have anything to hide, but definitely, like, my important information is not on my phone that I would be worried about anything negatively happening to it. But if you were to think about your phone in that manner, because I'll tell you, like, if you were to watch any court case within the last 5 years, the amount of information that people found, like, oh, we found this on their phone and we found this on their phone, I'm like, why are people still using phones that way? If you're that grimy, you should know better, right? And I'm like, I got nothing to hide, and I'm not being that stupid. So it's just like, whatever. To each his own. Richard says, "Wow, Alec, if it works as intended, keep it." It's very true. But like that's what I said. The only thing is it has to do is like security leaks and stuff like that, where you could be running a risk because it's like imagine running a computer right now with Windows 7, right? And having like vital information or anything of your personal information there. It wouldn't be ideal. Belief Hero is in the house. How you doing, James? Alec is laughing, says time to upgrade as the 6S just stopped getting. Oh, look at that. I didn't even read but apparently it just got stopped getting iOS updates. I only used it for tethering on my iPad and unlimited data plan. I never talk phone calls. Well, you know what? Then you might just want to get a whole nother phone. You understand? Keep that one as that because an unlimited tethering, that is priceless, man. That all alone is like, you know what? Don't use it for anything except like a modem and keep it for that would be ideal. And then just get a new phone, and maybe just, yeah, I would even get a new phone number if the number was linked to the plan that gave you the unlimited stuff. So that sounds really cool. Richard says voice isolation is awesome. I use it all the time and it kills the background noise, even if you're in a noisy environment. Yep. James says, I thought they added access to external cameras for iPad. I don't own an iPad and I haven't researched that at all. So you might be right. I would definitely find that very interesting. But the one negative is this, like if you're gonna be using an iPad, an iPhone, or anything like that as a streaming device, it's gonna kill your battery. And now if you're using another external device that needs to be powered, like a camera, and relying off that signal, whether it's a webcam or even a full-fledged camera using some type of like cam link or maybe just directly USB-C, that's still going to drain the battery even faster, which doesn't make the iPad, the iPhone, or anything like that ideal for live streaming. Because you might be thinking, hey, we're running all good, and then the next thing you know, boom, you got no battery. And because you're utilizing that, you have no way to continuously trickle charge your iPad, iPhone / device. So that's why I said, like, it just really depends on what you're doing. He says, Alec, we will all teach you how to do phone calls. Very funny. All right, guys, but we did it. We're half an hour over. There's a big UFC fight night tonight. I forgot the name of it, but it's like celebrating Hispanic heritage. Last week was a crazy UFC weekend. Israel Adesanya lost convincingly to Sean Strickland. Craziness. Not what nobody expected, but still a great night of mixed martial arts. And tonight is going to be the same. So I will start watching the replay as soon as I'm done here. As always, I want to thank you all for taking the time and hanging out here with me. If you haven't gotten the drift already, we have just completed 146 consecutive episodes of the Camera Junkie live stream. And next week, we'll be doing it all over again. Episode 147 is in the wings, so mark it on your calendars. 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. every Saturday night right here on the Camera Junkie YouTube channel. I can't thank you all enough for hanging out here with me. You are the reason that this is my favorite thing to do every weekend, and I don't see a foreseeable end in sight. So, as always, take care of yourselves and each other, and I can't wait to see all of your smiling faces next week as we do it all over again. Have a great night. Talk to you.